The record is largely, about struggle. About trying to, get through something, and then once you get through it, you're kind of telling yourself, like, was it worth it? Was it worth the effort? The record starts with the valley, and it ends with the town. So it takes you on this journey where you finally find yourself back to where you started from again. But you're not the same person anymore. And it's actually when you get back to that starting point, you're not the same person, but somehow you're trying to find who that person was, if that makes any sense. By the time we got about a third of the way, maybe almost halfway through the record, I realized something that a lot of the songs, majority of these songs, were in first person. I mean, I never write that way. I usually write in a more narrative way, not as like anthropologists with looking through a magnifying glass kind of thing, but it's most of them are story songs about certain things that I experienced or that I saw when I was growing up. I always draw from the experience of growing up in East LA, which is the town at the edge of the city, right along the edge of the LA River, which was the line of demarcation between downtown LA and small town East Los Angeles. When I write a lyric, I know that David's going to be the one. I've got to believe that he can sing this, even when it comes down to like a certain word or something. I've got to believe that this is a word that can come out of David's mouth. Since he was going to be identified as as in a story, the protagonist, he's the person that is going to interpret this as his own story. I had to make sure that David felt comfortable with this. We not only have been songwriters for 35, 36 years, but we've been friends for longer than that. And we've been close friends since we were kids. So we could talk, but I just got to get it out. I got to tell him, this is where I'm going with this. Are you all right? And he said, yeah, let's just do it.
That kind of trust that we have in each other, I know it's going to be great. It's going to be something I wouldn't have done, it's always going to it's going to be a lot better than I might imagine. And I like the surprise.
There was a lyric that he came up with on this record, on Hold On. He came up with this chorus. It was the first sing, and so I said, wow, that's tough. That's tough. The key line is, killing myself to survive.
Hold on.
So I got it done, and I had to call him. I said, Dave, this isn't pretty. This is some pretty, you got me started on something here that you were moved by and felt was important for you to sing, and it was up to me to kind of take it the rest of the way. And so I'm going to dig in and really get it, do it. And ultimately I said, are you comfortable with this? And he said, yeah.
That's the only way to do it, I guess. For that type of song, it was like when he worked on it. He says, "Well, here's what I got." I said, "It's ugly." He says, "It was right."
It revealed itself this way. We either resist and create something that will be static and lifeless, or we just go with this thing and let it just be alive with all of its pimples and wrinkles and dark, corners, and as songwriters, we both agreed that we're up for that challenge. We're gonna head back to the old neighborhood from here and just take a look at where I grew up, and I think it's a fairly good example of like where the neighborhoods that the rest of the band grew up in. Where we're going right now is a part of any and every story that has been in my work and songwriting. Every lyric, every visual image that comes across musically, it's all tied to where I grew up. This is where I went to elementary school. Here it's Hamel Street School, and this was my neighborhood. When I was a kid, that hill right in front of us, I'd ride my bike and it was like, whoa! But now I'm looking at that hill and it's like nothing, right? And I had friends that lived all along these houses. These houses have never changed. If you take a look at them, they're still the exact same that they were back then. And this is where I went to kindergarten, right here. My first day of kindergarten, because I lived literally across the street. My mom dropped me off at kindergarten first day of school, and when they let us out for recess, I didn't know what that was, so I went home. That's where I bought all my candy when I was a kid. Sense has kind of fallen by the wayside, as you see. It's not no longer all boarded up. That's La Favorita Tortilleria. So my mom sent me in the morning on Saturday with an empty pot and buy $1 worth of menudo. This is a classic East LA house still. Kind of wood frame house. Hasn't been stuccoed or anything. Beware of dog. And then the one right next door is one that's kind of like, this is like the modern East LA house. It's got like the wrought iron and all stuccoed. Yeah, sure is. That's Conrad's house. Imagine that. Sure as heck didn't look like that before. Yeah, they fixed it up. This is the church hall where there used to be bands playing all the time. That's when I first heard live music. And right there is the house I grew up in. A little gray house, but of course it's been fixed up. It was just much like those other clapboard-like houses, wood houses that we saw earlier. The siding, that's already been stuck. There used to be 2 big palm trees in the front, and that is my friend's auto electric shop, CNR Auto Electric, established in like I don't know when it was, 50 years ago. We sit on those chairs right there. You see those white chairs? We sit there and just talk. The purple house, man. Yeah. This is the LA River, which divides East Los Angeles, the town where we grew up, and downtown LA. For my experience growing up, this is where I was from. This was like the other world, the other side of the river was LA, downtown LA city. As far as the record is concerned, my own personal experience that I draw from when I write. This is what I'm talking about. On this record, it's where everything's insulated and safe in your own town, and then going into the city, which is the uncharted territory, the place where homogenization takes place, where you have to be kind of part of a much larger thing than what you are. Over here, you in East LA, you maintain your cultural integrity, you maintain your own individuality as part of this, still as part of a community. But the city, like anywhere, I mean, we could be in the dividing line of any place in America. The idea of this record was to point out the differences, but then again, at the same time, there's so much similarities in the way that we all grew up in the urban centers around the U.S.
I close my eyes and it's all I see.
It was a pretty fascinating process for me because it's it's one of those things where you never really know until you do it. I mean, a lot of times I'd have this idea in my head and I'd execute it and think, okay, that's exactly what I heard in my head, but it sounds like crap. And it's a funny thing. It's, you know, the miracle and magic of music is you don't really know until you actually hear it if ideas are going to work sometimes.